Okay, um, finished turn 13. And kind of more of the same. You can see the Prussians are really moving along here up near Reims, um, putting in a decent push against the French armies. Again, they've got an extra army here. Didn't really work that well in the last turn, no, back in turn 11, when I attacked with multiple armies. The penalties for attacking with multiple armies, the column shifts, are just too cumbersome, and so you find yourself not wanting to do a giant offensive push into a pretty stacked army. This is the army of Alsace here, and this is the army of the Rhine. The two main French armies, and they're all just kind of piled together here. But the Germans did manage to swing around with the first, no, this wasn't the first army. Fourth army? No, third army, yeah. The third army pushed out from here and kind of swung around to try and interdict the supply of the army of Alsace, which was fighting in this hex, or defending in this hex. I pushed with the first army. It was a lower odds. It was a 1 to 2. I think I ended up on the 1 to 3 table because I had some shifts for the forest hex side and fortifications. And I did get cav superiority, but not the shift for the Prussians. So we end up here with a heavily not heavily, but significantly outnumbered army, trying to push the French. And this was the first battle where I used the new errata / rules clarification that indicates that you remove demoralizations via the battle impact chart after you've determined a victor, which is, I think, huge, because I've had a number of battles where the French would have lost, but they had so many pluses on the battle impact table, and the Germans had so many minuses, that the French would get to remove all of their demoralizations and hand a loss to the Prussians. Their casualties would be even usually, but the Prussians would inevitably lose because they had more demoralizations, even though, because of the Prussian superior artillery, they should usually be able to inflict more demoralizations on the French. So this seemed to be a change to the rules that, I don't know if, I can't imagine it was just from, me and Enrico's videos showing the Prussians having a lot of problems moving the French. So there may have been some more playtesting, other instances where the designer and developer learned that people were having real problems with the Prussians actually winning combats, because they'd keep losing on demoralizations because of the battle impact results, which were skewed towards the French and their superior leadership and defensive posture. So, maybe that was the reasoning behind the change. Regardless, it worked in the favor of the Prussians here, because they were able to inflict that additional demoralization in the artillery phase on the French. In this case, it was more because the French just rolled poorly on in the artillery phase and weren't able to inflict a demoralization, even though they had something like 30 or so, 35 points of artillery. This is just a massive army here. And that's the other thing, is that none of these corps are really in any sort of danger of getting eliminated. In this Republican, the early stages of the Republican French turn here, the French have significant reserves to mobilize, and those reserves are sprinkled liberally throughout all these French corps, but that's only a -1, which is easily counteracted by the +6 that I usually get on French leadership. So during combat, so I did finally at least have a success of the outnumbered Prussian army actually moving French off of a fortified position, which would not have ordinarily happened um, without that clarification to the or that change to the battle impact um, and battle victor resolution scenarios. So, but as it stands now. And there was some stuff going on here in the south. Zoom back out here. Stuff going on down here in the south. I created the Army of the Loire and actually harassed pretty successfully the Prussian Fourth Army down here, and actually destroyed a couple Prussian corps that I had strung out to kind of protect the railheads that I'd gotten. And the Army of the Loire, with 2 full corps and a cav corps or cav division, were able to actually isolate, and these Prussian corps failed their reaction rolls, and so I was able to get them individually and destroy a couple of Prussian corps, which just made it all the more clear to me that the Prussians just can't win this. I'm sieging, and I've had some progress on some of the sieges. I captured. No, I haven't captured Toul yet. I think it was down here, one of these forts. I think there's a fort here. Yeah. Vesoul. I captured that. I bypassed Belfort. So, I had this rail line here, but, there's just not enough time left. There's 4 turns left, and that's just not enough to win the Siege of Paris. And that's what the Prussians would need, because they just are not able at this point to just fully destroy any French corps. The French just have too many reserves coming in every turn, and they're shitty mobile troops, but it doesn't matter if you have at least 1 regular infantry in your army, you're fine. It's only -1, and the French leadership more than counteracts any -1 that they take. It's actually much worse for the Prussians to have Landswehr in their troops, because that -1 for the Prussians is bad. That could eliminate their combat DRM entirely, because the Prussians just don't have any pluses for their DRMs. When you look over here at the Prussian leadership, and this is, they've got all their corps on the board. They don't have a whole lot of the corps commanders that they have left to choose from. There's a handful of guys that might have a +1, but there's also some -1s. But look, these guys are all 0s, -1s. I think there's a single +1, the 4th Corps. Yeah, but a single +1 in all the Prussian corps. And the Prussian leaders that are left, I've got Manteuffel here. He's a +1, 0, 0, -1, 0, -2, -1, -1. So you can see I've had no incentive to bring in new corps commanders. This would be at my 1 in 8 chance of actually getting a positive DRM on a Prussian corps commander. No, so that's a waste. You don't want to spend victory points fishing after that. So I think I'm going to call it here. In this game, I've had it set up for a couple of months, and I'll come back with a review. But there's just no way that the Prussians can win it at this point. They're at 16 victory points, because they lost a couple of corps in there. On the victory point chart, 16 victory points. That's going to be a substantial French victory. So they need 34 even to get up to 34 more points just to get up to a marginal French victory, and it's just not going to happen. So I will call it here. I'd be interested in maybe playing some of the other scenarios and playing it opposed, just to see if that creates any kind of different experience. But I'll come back with more on the review.